Well, to the 2020 presidential election now, Kamala Harris is officially on the campaign trail. The 2020 Democratic presidential candidate held her first rally in her hometown of Oakland, California, Sunday, reportedly drawing in over 20,000 people to the event. That's more than former President Obama had at his first rally back when he launched his campaign in 2007. Harris has a long history of public service. She is a former prosecutor and California's first female attorney general. She was elected to the U.S. Senate in 2016.
And for more, we turn now to Rick Klein of ABC News. Rick, let's start off with Kamala Harris and that big campaign announcement this past weekend. There's a lot of talk about the crowds that she drew. What separates Kamala Harris from the rest of the ever-growing Democratic pack?
This was a statement. That event itself, I think, was a statement that she belongs in the big leagues. And no other candidate even tried to put together a big outdoor rally like that. 20,000 people out there, I think, doing it at her home base in Oakland says something as well. And I think when you look at Harris, you've got a sterling resume as a prosecutor at the local level and the state level, and then as a United States Senator. Her background, her multi-ethnic, multiracial background, I think, is a big calling card. California is a big opportunity for fundraising and for building a base of support. And I think she is someone that's trying to signal from the start that she belongs there in the conversation with the serious candidates for president.
Strong start indeed.
Yeah. Rick, so many people are, more and more people are starting to throw their names into the ring, their hats into the ring for 2020. As we look at these people who are entering, are there any who stick out to you? Who do you think could really be a viable challenger for President Trump?
Well, when you talk about 24 candidates, it's hard to say who belongs in each path. But I am struck by a couple of people that have gotten in early and a few who are staying out. Elizabeth Warren kind of got the campaign season started. And we know her by reputation. She is a star in liberal circles. A lot of people thought she should run 4 years ago. She decided not to. We've seen the moves already by Harris, so I think it will be a first-tier contender right off of the bat. Senator Gillibrand from New York, another one. I'm also intrigued by some of these people that are waiting a little bit. Bernie Sanders is one of them. He had a huge following last time. We know that it ended a little bit short for him. Is he able to capture the same momentum? Vice President Biden, he's going to be a very big name when and if he makes a decision to do it. And then Beto O'Rourke, who comes off of that losing Senate campaign with an unparalleled fundraising capability. He became a national, even international Democratic superstar. And he can wait maybe a little bit longer than the others because of the celebrity that he derived from it, even though the most recent thing he did was lose that Senate race.
Do you have a feeling of whether Joe Biden will actually enter the race?
You know, I go back and forth, and I talk to people that go back and forth, and I think it's legitimately unsettled in his mind. I have no doubt that he wants to be president. He's even said publicly that he thinks he'd be the best president, be the best matchup against President Trump. But he got close last time. There were family considerations that held him back, and I think there's an extra consideration now is that he's getting older, and there's this whole crop of new Democrats, younger Democrats, who are trying to make the same play. So how does he factor that in? He doesn't want to get in and lose, obviously. He also wouldn't want to give up on his probably last best shot.
Coming off the partial government shutdown, we're in the first week where the government has been reopened. You see critics of President Trump saying he caved.
Yeah.
How will this affect his 2020 chances among Republicans, among his base, and even to some extent Democrats?
Well, look, the president has been able to depend on this base from the beginning, and he's got this core of a third of the country that thinks he can do no wrong. The group that he famously said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, right? So did he just shoot someone on Fifth Avenue by giving up on the wall? I'm not sure that's true. We saw it in our polling that his numbers softened throughout this. He's near a record low approval rating. His base is still behind him, but I think even as he plays this out, we've got only 3 weeks until another possible shutdown. Does he move forward with a national emergency to try to get the wall? I think for him to signal to his supporters how important this pledge was. It was an unequivocal pledge. We remember it from 200 some odd rallies. I'm going to build the wall. Mexico is going to pay for it. Clearly, the wall isn't going to be paid for by Mexico. Does he make a step to actually get it built? I think that is a core campaign promise. I think it highlights some of his vulnerabilities, though, overall, is that he needs to still come off as a guy that can get things done, as a deal maker, someone who delivers on promises.
Yeah. In the midterms, we saw President Trump really pushing border security. Nancy Pelosi then said that she thought the main reason they won the House was because of health care, and the Democrats pushing that. Rick, what are going to be some of the big issues come 2020?
Well, the biggest one is Trump, and it really will be a referendum on President Trump. That's how re-election campaigns almost always are. And I think there's a lot of things that go into that. The wall and border security is a big one because the president obviously has his feelings on it. Health care is another one because he has has a different direction. I think the economy can become an overriding factor. There was just the numbers out today about the loss to the economy as a result of the shutdown, by some measures more expensive than the wall that the president wants. So I think all of those things go into it, but really it comes down to a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the president. He's the guy that, as of Election Day 2020, will have been in office for 4 years. How do people feel like it's going? That ultimately is the biggest factor typically in a re-election race.
Rick Klein, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Coming up, how the president is weighing in on the push for teaching Bible literacy in public schools.
It seems we've been left alone.
The law states that no person shall convert any person from one religious faith to another.
Who is he?
And yet not one missionary has been charged.
Graham Staines, nice to properly meet you.
You bring me evidence of illegal conversion by Graham Staines. I'll give you a permanent position.
Need new floors? Empire Today makes getting beautiful new floors easy. Impossible? Let me show you. Empire brings hundreds of samples to you. We call it Shop at Home. The floors are high quality and come with great warranties. Plus, Empire handles the installation. You don't lift a finger, and the job's done right. Shop at Home, quality floors, professional installation. That's Empire Today.
Get $250 off new floors. Call the special number on your screen now.
Attention! If you currently do not get health insurance through your employer, or if you do not have health insurance, or if you just got divorced or married, had a baby, moved, or lost your health insurance coverage, listen closely. You are eligible for a new health care plan using Health Insurance America. A family of 4 can make up to $97,000 a year and still qualify for a new health care plan. Get coverage for doctor visits, prescriptions, hospital, dental, and vision for as little as $25 a week, with copays as low as $0. Health insurance rates have nearly doubled in the last 3 years. Stop paying the rising cost of traditional major medical and learn how Health Insurance America is saving people thousands of dollars a year on their health care plans. Don't waste hours on the phone or on a government website. Talk to a live healthcare consultant right now.
Call 1-800-940-5020. That's 1-800-940-5020. 1-800-940-5020.
President Trump is speaking out in favor of Bible literacy classes taught in public schools. The president today declaring in a tweet, quote, "Giving students the option of studying the Bible is great." The president's support comes as lawmakers have introduced Bible literacy bills in Florida, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Virginia, and West Virginia, some of which have already been voted down.
And joining us now is Trey Goins-Phillips from FaithWire to talk more about Bible teachings in public schools. Trey, these classes would focus on biblical literacy and the Bible's historical significance. Lawmakers now behind the bills say they want to restore traditional values in schools, but opponents say these bills could violate the U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause. What's your take on that?
Well, to me, if you're going to have a class that's talking about literacy and it's talking about the role that Scripture has played, and particularly in the founding of the country, I think that can be only helpful. I understand complaints and concerns about proselytizing, but I think these bills and the defenders of these bills have made clear that they don't want to preach like they're in a pulpit. They want to teach like they're in a classroom and help students to understand better. As an anecdote, I had an experience when I was in community college several years ago. It was a public college, obviously, and I was in a literature class, and one of the students pushed back on our professor when she referenced an Old Testament passage and said, "You can't teach that in a public institution. That's against the separation of church and state." And she said, "Well, from a literary perspective, the Bible has historical significance." And she said, in the Old Testament in particular is the story of the Jewish people. It's the story of how they came to be. So these texts, the Old and New Testament, have historical significance. Right. And I think to deny that is just, ignorant.
Right. Well, to that point, we use phrases all the time like Good Samaritan, which has more than just cultural reference. It has biblical reference. So if you don't teach that, you're missing the significance there. But in a country that's becoming more and more secular, won't it be difficult for measures like this to pass?
I think there's kind of a hunkering down in local smaller districts, but I do think nationally we'll see more and more pushback from big groups like the UCLA and what have you.
Trey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And for more on Faith Wire, you can check out their program on the CBN News channel. You can find that every Monday night at 9:30 p.m.
Well, this month marks the 15th anniversary of the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which provides money to low-income kids in the nation's capital. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos says the program has helped hundreds. Here's Ben Kennedy.
President Trump called education the civil rights issue of our day. He contends that allowing school choice will help revitalize urban regions that are failing minority youths. Secretary DeVos called this a bipartisan issue and that lawmakers need to cross party lines for the kids.
We need to, as a nation, embrace the notion that our future is reliant on what we do for kids today.
Secretary DeVos made a rare public appearance after getting hurt in a bicycle accident over the holidays.
The worst part about it is that I can't put weight on my left leg for 3 months.
It didn't stop her from touting the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program on its special day.
The outcomes for students in DC have continued to improve from the most underperforming district in the country to now one that is on a growth trajectory.
DeVos has been a long proponent of school choice, which aims to give parents the alternatives to assigned public schools and the power to decide where their child is educated. It even includes scholarships for low-income families.
It is imperative that Congress not only reauthorize this program, but do so with predictability and stability.
But that won't be easy, as Democrats, now in control of the House, plan to challenge DeVos's policies, including overhauling campus sexual assault rules, her rollback of for-profit college regulations, and her support for arming school staff members. Now, Secretary DeVos did not take questions, but her spokesperson said that she is ready to work with any member of Congress who wants to rethink education and do better for America's students. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
When we come back, a look at why the Pacific Northwest could be in danger of a devastating earthquake.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
An earthquake struck off the coast of Oregon Sunday. The U.S. Geological Survey says it was a magnitude 4.5, which is considered a light earthquake on the Richter scale.
And when it comes to natural disasters, the Pacific Northwest is just about the nation's quietest corner. But as Paul Strand explains, the area also has the potential to become the site of the largest earthquake the U.S. has ever seen.
A fault line runs up the entire coast of Oregon and Washington that someday could cause a more devastating earthquake than anything ever predicted along California's infamous San Andreas Fault. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone and sits right on the ring of fire that rims the Pacific Ocean. It'll eventually send powerful ground-shredding shakes through much or all of the land between the coast and the Cascade Mountain Range.
It'll be spread from
Canada to California, over 800 miles.
Leading Cascadia quake expert Chris Goldfinger says much of the building in this area happened before people knew it's a quake zone.
The whole Pacific Northwest is very, very fragile. Essentially, our cities are sort of turn-of-the-century cities built on a time bomb.
If it should hit Seattle at a monstrous 9 or higher on the Richter scale, FEMA's regional planner points to just one of many frightening results.
When the skyscrapers start swaying, well, a lot of them are designed to have their windows pop out. There'll be 3 feet of broken glass on the roads.
Matt Caesar didn't want to discuss death toll numbers, but it's clear.
Many people will lose their lives, unfortunately.
These attractive hillsides are filled with many homes that would come tumbling down. And because there's so much water, another big problem exists, like in Seattle.
Seattle was built on fill, and that doesn't do well during disasters.
So you have the earthquake shaking, and then you have the ground basically just kind of liquefying out from under the buildings.
So the structures on top of it will find they're on ground that's suddenly moving side to side, and up and down. Hard to survive something like that. And gas lines, water lines, sewage lines will all be breaking. There'll be much flooding, and lots of fires.
I was in Katrina, the water was boiling with fire because the gas lines were ruptured where it flooded, and then it ignites, so the water is literally on fire.
Highways and roadways will buckle, overpasses crumble, bridges like those connecting Portland's 2 sides and Oregon to Washington would come tumbling down.
And so you'll have the major highways blocked every couple of miles by collapsed bridges.
The area is rich in hydroelectric power, but many of the lines and towers bringing it in will fall. Getting all these things restored could take a long, long time.
Months in some areas years.
Then comes the topper. The quake would cause a tsunami so large it would wipe out anything not on high enough ground. The tsunami that follows is going to come rushing in here and be anywhere from 20 to 40, 60, 80 feet deep maybe, and most of the structures that have survived the quake are going to be smashed into by a wall of water, and it doesn't end there. The next one could be even higher, the next wave after that, even higher. Much of Seaside, Oregon is almost eye level with the ocean. Planning manager Kevin Couples knows just about all the area's schools would be right in the tsunami zone. That's why he's really pleased residents recently voted for funding to move the schools and kids to higher ground.
So now they're basically going to be outside the inundation zone and on stable ground.
But that kind of worst-case planning is unfortunately rare because this area has been strangely quiet for so long when it comes to quakes.
The Ring of Fire, you can see all these other places having this seismic activity, and then there's this one void in our area that's not.
As he campaigns for smarter building and planning in this region, Goldfinger says he gets every kind of reaction.
Everywhere from I'm going to pick up my family and move to the Midwest to meh.
As one friend who lives right by the ocean said to him,
if a tsunami gets me, I've had a good life.
Resistance mainly comes from those who don't want to spend the necessary dollars to retrofit old buildings, or from areas scared to lose tourist dollars.
They don't want people to be afraid to go to the coast because they've heard about this earthquake thing. And so that's what happens when economics meets Mother Nature.
Recent discoveries show these killer Cascadia quakes hit on average 243 to roughly 500 years apart. Well, it's been 318 years since the last one, so parts of the region are way overdue. Though again, we're talking averages, so no one knows when the next will hit. Only that for sure, sooner or later, it shall.
We could have it literally right now, and we'd be looking around going, okay, I guess this is it.
Someday it's going to happen, and that could be 15 minutes from now, or that could be years down the road.
Caesar is sorry for reports that could panic the population, but he's at least grateful they're getting folks to talk and prepare.
So it is an important thing to have these conversations with your kids and family.
He points out in a region of 7 million potential victims, it's quite likely rescuers won't be able to get to you, so you'll need to rescue yourself.
At some point, you got to look and say, I've got to take care of myself, take care of my family, prepare yourself.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Seattle.
Okay, we get it, Paul. Potentially dangerous, but certainly gorgeous country.
Gorgeous country.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.